Have you ever wondered what could turn a father, a husband, into a murderer in his own home? A place that should be the safest of all? This question is not merely a rhetorical one. It embodies the haunting thoughts of the residents of Columbia, Illinois, on May 5, 2009. On an ordinary morning when Christopher Coleman returned home after a workout, he had no idea that what awaited him was a horrific scene. His wife and two sons had been murdered. Christopher, a security officer for a well-known ministry, faced an unimaginable pain upon discovering that his wife, Sherry, along with their two sons, Garrett and Gavin, had become victims of a tragic bloodbath. The threats he had received prior suddenly turned into reality. This story is not just a simple murder case. It is a deep investigation into obsession, greed, and the terrible secrets hidden within a seemingly perfect family. Christopher Coleman was born into a family with a strong religious foundation. His father was a prominent pastor who devoted his life to serving the community and spreading the message of God. In this religious atmosphere, Christopher was educated about the values of loyalty, love, and responsibility. After completing his military service, Christopher met Sherry during a canine training program. They quickly fell in love and got married, establishing a family with two adorable sons, Garrett and Gavin. The image of a perfect family with weekend BBQs and outdoor games left many in admiration. However, when Christopher began working for Joyce Meyer Ministries, the pressure from his job increased. He became a target of threats, not only because of his role, but also due to the fanatical followers who disagreed with the organization's views. Sherry began to notice changes in her husband. Anxiety and stress crept into their conversations. In November 2008, Christopher started receiving threatening emails from an unknown sender. These messages clearly posed a threat to his family's life. One of the letters read, "If I can't get to Joyce, then I will get to someone close to her." These threats not only worried Christopher, but also made Sherry feel insecure. In January 2009, a letter was sent to the Coleman home with a clearer threat. "Publicly renounce your God, or your family will pay the price." Tension rose within the family, and fear began to affect their daily lives. To ensure his family's safety, Christopher decided to install security cameras around the house. He hoped that recording images could help protect his family. Yet the anxiety still wouldn't let go of them, and Christopher always felt as if a shadow was watching his every move. "I can't live in fear like this forever," he exclaimed during a conversation with Sherry. On the morning of May 5th, Christopher left home at 5:40 a.m. to go to the gym. He tried to call Sherry to wake her up, but received no response. When the phone rang without anyone answering, anxiety started to creep into his heart. As Christopher drove home at 6:52 a.m., he could not imagine what awaited him. The door was wide open, and the air felt heavy and silent, signaling something terrible. Immediately, he called his neighbor, Justin Barlow, a detective from the Columbia Police Department, for help. Justin quickly arrived at the Coleman home and checked the situation with Christopher. Upon entering, Justin sensed something was wrong. "I couldn't see anything from the front door, but something suggested to me that there was an issue," he recalled. They went down to the basement, where a strong smell of spray paint hit their noses. Scary messages were sprayed on the walls, reflecting madness. Punished, and messages reminiscent of helter-skelter. Justin turned to Christopher with a worried look, saying, "We need to call the police immediately." Justin decided to head upstairs to check the bedrooms. The sight he discovered there would haunt him forever. At the top of the stairs, I found the bodies of Sherry and the two boys. They had been strangled while sleeping, in the most brutal way possible for a mother and her children. When Christopher realized this horrifying truth, he collapsed to the floor, filled with despair. He fell to the ground, tears streaming down his face, unable to believe that his life had shattered in mere seconds. Why them? Why my family? Questions like daggers pierced his heart, and there were no answers. Justin, unsure of what to do, called the police. While waiting, he tried to comfort Christopher, but words seemed meaningless in that moment. The police quickly arrived at the scene, and ambulances were also dispatched. However, when they confirmed that all three victims were deceased, it was too late. The investigation was launched immediately, and Christopher became the prime suspect. In the hours following the incident, His behavior raised suspicion among the police. In the surveillance video from the police department, Christopher did not display the anxiety or grief one would expect from a father who had lost his children. Instead, he appeared relatively calm, which only heightened the investigators' suspicions. One of the most concerning issues was his reaction when asked about the death of his wife and children. "Why didn't you ask how they died?" one investigator questioned. Christopher simply stared at the ground, showing no desire to learn the truth. It seemed as if he had prepared a script for himself. The police began to investigate every aspect of Coleman's life, from personal relationships to his work. Information about Coleman's affair with Tara Lentz, a childhood friend of Sherry's, began to emerge. This not only complicated the investigation, but also provided an important piece of evidence that could indicate a motive for the crime. They had known each other for many years, but their relationship became more serious when Christopher began flying to Florida to meet Tara on business trips. At this point, the police had collected significant evidence. The threatening letters Coleman received appeared to have originated from his own computer. They discovered an email account named destroychris@gmail.com, and all signs pointed to it being Coleman's. Notably, the IP address of this account matched his computer at work. Additionally, several neighbors shared information about strange phone calls from unknown numbers that appeared before the incident. These calls seemed to relate to the threats the Coleman family had received. "I felt like someone was watching them," one neighbor remarked. "They always seemed worried." Christopher could not fathom that the secrets he kept could turn into evidence against him. After 2 years of intense investigation, the Christopher Coleman case finally went to trial in April 2011. Prosecutor Ed Parkinson prepared a comprehensive file of evidence, ranging from threatening letters to video footage from surveillance cameras. The drama of the trial captivated the entire community. Tara Lentz, Coleman's mistress, was summoned as a witness. She appeared in court looking anxious, but also defiant. The explicit messages and photos they had exchanged were brought to light, making many uncomfortable. When Tara took the stand, her voice trembled but was firm. "We had plans for the future, but that will never happen," Tara cried as she recalled the pain Sherry and her sons endured. "Christopher always told me he would get a divorce. I trusted him." The jury faced a difficult decision. Was Coleman truly the murderer? In a tense session, as the evidence gradually unfolded, the jury had to acknowledge that the truth was hard to accept. Time passed and questions kept ringing in their heads. Could a father really do this to his own family? One of the most critical pieces of evidence presented by the prosecutor was a handwritten note from Christopher that investigators had found at the crime scene. Handwriting experts determined that the writing on the wall matched Coleman's. This provided a pivotal point in the case, reinforcing suspicions about his involvement in the murders. Finally, after 15 hours of deliberation, they reached a verdict. Christopher Coleman, defendant in the first-degree murder case of his wife and 2 sons, is found guilty. The crowd outside the courthouse erupted in cheers and tears from friends of the Coleman family. They had waited 2 long years, but justice had finally been served. With this verdict, Christopher Coleman faced a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Although he maintained his innocence, no one in the community accepted that justification. Feelings of outrage and resentment blanketed the neighborhood that once witnessed the image of a happy family. The Coleman case left a deep scar in the heart of the Columbia community. The residents could not forget the image of a family lost in an unimaginable tragedy. A memorial service was held to honor Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin, with many attending to express their grief and condolences. Moreover, friends and family decided to establish a charity to assist victims of domestic violence. They hoped that the deaths of Sherry and her sons would not only serve as a tragedy, but also as a motivation to encourage the community to support others in need. In community activities, the residents of Columbia sought to revive the beautiful memories of the Coleman family. They organized sporting events, workshops, and educational programs on domestic violence prevention. They wanted Sherry and her son's message to live on in everyone's hearts, so that no one would have to endure such pain again. Christopher Coleman remains in prison, asserting his innocence while his victims will never return. This case raises profound questions about human nature. How can someone become a monster, and where does evil truly come from? Everyone needs to remember that behind every case there is pain, broken families, and dreams that will never be realized. Through this story, may we recognize the importance of protecting our families and loving one another, because in a moment, everything can change forever. We cannot overlook signs of violence and threats. Let us listen and support those around us, because every life is precious. The tragedy of Christopher Coleman and his family is not just a case, but a painful lesson about humanity and the cruelty of life.